Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the viewer, to get to know our candidates a little better and to hear how they feel about issues that are important to our community. This is all leading up to the general election, where early voting starts on October 13th and goes until Election Day on November 3rd. For our interviews, we took questions from the community via social media and email. So today we're going to talk about the shakeup in city government, how COVID is affecting our community, confronting social injustice on the local level, and really much more. So again, that's a lot to talk about. So let's jump right in and meet today's guest. It's Kelly May, and he's running for City Commission. So Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us about yourself and why you're running for City Commission.
Kathy, thank you for having me on and all the candidates to give our viewers at home and our voters an opportunity to learn about ourselves and why we're running. I am Kelly May. I'm 34 years old. I was born and raised right here in Frankfort. Grew up in Collins Lane area. I'm a father of an amazing daughter, Lillian, and husband with an amazing wife, Brittany. I'm a business owner here in our community, Bourbon on Main, as well as a partner over at Siglusher Brewery. Very excited and happy to be helping the economy in our community grow through those projects. And most importantly, I'm just really passionate about where we're going and the opportunities that we have as a community, even during the trying times that we have. So for me, the opportunity to serve as city commissioner would really give me a chance to give back to a community that's given me so much already.
How do you feel your experience as a business owner is going to help in your term on City Commission?
Well, for me, I view the city government as a business essentially, and our customers are the voters and the taxpayers and people that live and work here in our community. And just like in a business, constantly balancing a budget and keeping up with current trends and demands of customers, we'll be doing the same thing as a leader, on the city commission, hopefully.
Okay. Well, since last we spoke, the City Commission has fired our city manager, Keith Parker. So I want to ask you, why do you think Frankfort can't keep a city manager on a long-term basis?
I have been looking into this quite a bit, like I'm sure a lot of people have, and it seems like that's a national trend, a national average. And if you look at communities around us that are kind of growing and they're not operating under that form of government. So I think it's just a unique position to be in. I would certainly hope that in the upcoming years that we're able to tackle that, maybe do a little bit of open discussion to try and resolve, the turnover rate. As we know in any industry, turnover rates aren't always, the best thing for an organization. So it's certainly something that I would be willing to look at and try to help address.
Okay. Well, according to the Kentucky League of Cities, only about 5% of Kentucky's cities use the city manager plan. So what do you think are the advantages of a city manager plan? And is that the plan that you support, or do you think Frankfort should go to a mayor-council plan?
Well, right now, my focus is going to be on operating under the current form of government, which certainly is the city management form of government. My focus is going to be on working together as a team to get things moving forward. The advantage of the city management form of government, I think, allows, an individual who can work full-time, considering the fact that, technically we're considered part-time under this form of government. So you have somebody that can take the recommendations and the policies set forward by the Board of Commission and then enact those, on a full-time basis. So hopefully, it would expedite the things that the community wants to see put in place.
Okay. So we're going to be hiring a new city manager. So how do you think the current city commission should handle that search and hiring process? Should the current mayor and commission start that process, and should they pick our new city manager, or should they wait and let the new city leadership fill that role?
Well, I think most importantly, given the current situation, that we're all focus on and look and try to get more answers to. I think in the most transparent way as possible. I certainly would like the opportunity for the community to see as much as we're allowed to see of an application from the applicants. Maybe even get an opportunity to ask them questions as a community. As far as the current commission being a part of making that decision, I support whatever is going to be the best for our community. If we need to go ahead and get somebody in that spot to move forward, I'm going to support that decision.
Okay. So what do you think the city commission should look for in a new city manager?
Well, we're going to want somebody that is excited about where we're going. We're also going to want somebody that has a little bit of knowledge about one of our, arguably one of our leading industries around here, which is tourism. Somebody hopefully that has a background in networking and talking with individuals in that field. We're going to want somebody that is aware, of obviously of the current situation with the pandemic and how that plays into decisions both within the city, keeping the community safe and allowing us to continue to grow. And I think most importantly, somebody that is going to, be excited and willing to operate in a way that continues to allow transparency in government and efficiency and accountability.
Okay. Well, obviously it's been a hot button issue in our community and troubling for some. So if elected, what would you suggest the city commission do to boost public confidence in city government?
Well, I'll go back. I know I've said it a couple times already, but transparency as much as we possibly can. Obviously, during COVID, it's a little more difficult. Certain, technological issues can arise. You can have the ability to not have access to internet, so you may not be able to always get to watch your government in action during the meetings. But keeping daily even. Updates on, events, conversations, things that are going on at City Hall, and making sure there's plenty of notice and knowledge set forth to the community, through formal statements coming from government officials about what they're going to be discussing, what topics would be on the agenda, and making sure people have an appropriate amount of time to respond.
Okay. If elected, would you support the appointment of a citizens advisory committee that would be tasked with the identification of opportunities to improve the function of city government, its overall structure, and the roles and responsibilities of both elected and appointed managers?
I would. I think that will be key in kind of building that trust back up, as we were discussing. Anytime you as a citizen have an opportunity to participate in government, I believe you should. And I think that anytime the government has an opportunity to allow us as citizens to participate, that they should as well.
Okay. We'll move on to our next subject. As of this week, Franklin County is seeing more than 500 positive reported cases of COVID-19. Do you feel like the city leadership has taken an effectively aggressive role in slowing the spread of the virus in our community? And do you think there's any more that the city could do?
I have full faith that the city leaders right now that we have, emergency management directors and everybody, first responders that are working, following the guidelines of CDC, federal and state regulations, are doing everything they can. I think truly, that this isn't necessarily an issue that's going to come down to an ordinance. It's not going to come down to a guidance. It's going to come down to individual effort and responsibility to help, get us back on track to where we need to be.
Sure. Well, beyond affecting our community's physical health, it's also affecting our mental health. The CDC indicates that younger adults, racial and ethnic minorities, and essential workers are experiencing disproportionately worse mental health outcomes, increased substance abuse, and elevated suicidal ideation. So what efforts do you think can be taken at the local level to address these associated mental health conditions?
Well, first off, thanks for asking the question. We have to definitely destigmatize mental health and make sure that we continue to talk about it as much as possible. For all intents and purposes, I also am essential worker. I'm down at both businesses that have been allowed to stay open and operate during the pandemic. And it is stressful. It's very, physically, it's different, working in your mask all day. And, when you're serving on a floor or back on a patio, it can be a little hot, of course, but more importantly is just like you said, the stress that goes along with it about, the fear of exposure, and, the fear, especially for our healthcare workers and first responders that are out there all the time. As far as mental health and how we can impact the community, I definitely think just seeing a large effort from the city level of, some classes, for example, people that could sign up for, this is where you can go to get help if you need it, community outreach programs, continuing that, as much free assistance as possible. And, sometimes there's a lot of people that have insurance plans that aren't even aware about, what their policy does cover, and are sometimes surprised to find out that there is some mental health coverage on there. So, again, just more education on what resources are available, and then making sure that we continue to talk about it in a way that's approachable for everybody, and getting away from the shame of reaching out for help when needed.
Right. Well, 4 months ago, we discussed the looming economic crisis that would result from the pandemic. And we're starting to see that now, and we know that we're going to see more in the future as we get further along. If elected, what do you think are going to be the tough decisions that the commission has to make as far as the budget? And do you have any ideas to address the financial crisis?
Well, there's going to be, like you said, inevitable decisions and choices based on the city budget that we may have to see some cuts. I think the most important thing is going ahead and trying to identify where we may find ourselves strapped for cash, and then seeing what resources are out there and available from federal and state assistance, through grants, through, making sure that the local businesses are aware of those things as well. The local chambers have done a great job of reaching out and letting us know about the PPP loans, and continuing to educate us and making those resources available, so that we know how we can continue to operate a business during trying times. And then making sure, again, that we just identify where we think we might start to have to make those decisions, what departments or what areas may be affected, and start brainstorming now on how to, make that impact as little as possible.
Okay. Well, this summer, after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, our country saw a rising movement and calls for social justice. So, first question I have on this subject to you is, do Black Lives matter?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, Black Lives Matter.
Okay. Do you feel like, how do you feel the city rates when it comes to effectively addressing social injustice? Do you have any ideas for steps that should be taken in Frankfort to help ensure that equitable racial justice locally?
Well, kind of, with the first part of that question, I think one of the many moments that I've been incredibly proud of our community has been through the way in which we've seen public demonstrations unfold here, in a very peaceful and powerful way, with, the march led by the For the People Coalition. So many people were, concerned about what they were seeing take place across the country. And, once again, we proved that this community, when it's time to come together, can and will. So thank you for those that had a part in that. Also, really was excited to see the local law enforcement community making steps and efforts to reach out to Kentucky State University, those classes and trainings and seminars up there. I think that type of discussion is really important, especially for our youth. And, most importantly, right now, what I would like to see us do is just acknowledge the fact that this is a problem. I think the fact that we even have to ask, do Black Lives Matter, and even have that discussion just proves the fact that we are not at a place yet where we can sit back and say, job done. We're not. This fight is still going. It has taken some horrific acts for a lot of us to, have the eyelids kind of peeled back on this subject again. and the harsh realization that it never has gone away. It has never resolved. So I hope that this community continues to move forward in a peaceful way, and in a way that can take demonstrations and protests and turn them into policy to make real change. So most importantly for me as a leader right now, I think, and especially being a white male, it's going to be more important than ever to sit back and listen, and really listen to the individuals that this is affecting on a continual basis, and doing everything I can, with my privilege to help move the movement forward in a way that, lifts this community up. And then hopefully we can be an example for other communities on how to come together and make real policy change.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the march. That was my next question. Is back a group of young activists sponsored a march up Capitol Avenue in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. So what do you think city leaders can do to encourage more young people to get involved, civically engaged?
Well, we can go ahead and do some outreach programs. Certainly, the school year looks a little different for schools across the country, and definitely here in our community. But going ahead and reaching out to even elementary, middle school, and high school students about how they can be involved in government, and of course in social justice reform. And then continuing to showcase leaders and people that are in powerful positions in our community, that are from the Black and African American community or from a minority. And making sure that they can see that this is a community that supports everyone, and that we're committed to supporting everyone and lifting everyone up, and continuing again to just listen to them and what their needs might be and where they feel like their needs aren't being met.
Okay. Well, you work downtown, and obviously downtown there's a big piece of land that everybody's focused on, parcels B and C. Right now, the TIF is a big subject that everybody's talking about, public hearing, public input. So I want to ask you, can you explain to our viewers how the TIF would work and if it's something that you would support?
All right, so yes and no. I'm certainly not a TIF expert yet, but it's definitely the public benefit comes in from getting the project off the ground and having that infrastructure that any of the revenue collected through the taxes and that would be going towards that is for public benefit. So the sidewalks, the sewer infrastructure, the roadways, specifically in this instance, the parking garage that, has to be used for public benefit and be open to the public. So do I support it? I absolutely support anything that is going to help this development get off the ground, and any development moving forward. I would absolutely continue to listen to any concerns that people have. My understanding is there's going to be a public hearing next week coming up on this, so that we'll, most likely, may not find myself ever voting on the issue, but certainly sitting here right now, yes, I do support turning that district into a TIF district so that we can get that necessary infrastructure in place so the developer can get going.
Sure. As funds have been introduced for Downtown Frankfort Inc. and KCDC, which is our economic development group here in town, do you think this minimizes the effectiveness of their missions to attract and support businesses here in our community? And what can the city do to support these agencies?
My apologies, Kathy. The first part of that question cut out on me.
Okay, well, let me start over. As funding has been reduced for DFI, Downtown Frankfort Inc., and KCDC, which is our economic development group here in town, do you think this minimizes the effectiveness of their missions to attract and support businesses here in our community? And what more can the city do to support these agencies?
So as far as the funding cuts, anytime a decision like that has to be made, I'm sure it's not one that's made lightly. I would have to certainly do my due diligence in sitting down and talking with those board members to ask them how this funding, cuts have impacted them. I would have to assume that, certainly when you lose a little bit of your budget, you have to be a little more creative in ways that you reach out and continue your organization. I certainly know a lot of the individuals over there, and I have, full faith in them to be able to do that. You got some really brilliant and creative minds working on those boards, and we're lucky to have them. So as far as how the city will now continue to help, they're going to have to pick up, we're going to have to essentially kind of pick up the slack of where these boards may come and tell us that now without those funds, they can't do certain projects. They may not have the ability or the time to continue to move forward with, certain levels of their operations. So then we're going to need to see how we might be able to internalize that, perhaps hire a full-time person, at the city to do these things, part-time, again, commit another, that could be another opportunity for a community advisory board in a way also, as far as impacts with how, we go about attracting new business here and listening to the citizens also about what they want to see here, so you can take that information to potential investors.
Okay. If elected, how would you involve business leaders in board appointments and other decision-making processes in our community?
Well, I think it would definitely come down to, if it's specific in a certain industry, going to business leaders that have that type of experience. I really, honestly, I think I would, any board member, I'm going to take the same kind of approach for, which is look for the individual who's most qualified, who has the most experience for the board that, we're appointing them to, and who, we think is going to impact the community in the most positive way.
Okay. What is your plan to address Frankfort's low-income housing problem? And if elected, would you support a city ordinance which adopts the Uniform Residential Landlord Tenant Act, like other cities have done?
Well, this is another subject that I have to be honest with, with the voters, and say that I simply, would not call myself an expert on that. But what I can tell you is that I absolutely support making sure that we continue to make our community affordable for everyone that's here, and then protecting those that already do live here. The current poverty rates, that we're seeing in our community are, at the top of my list on things to work at. It was reported to me that 1 in 4 children, and maybe as high as 1 in 3, currently live at or below poverty in our community. There's still some data to come back on that to verify it, but that's going to be a top priority for mine. Affordable housing is important. We find a lot of the industries that we attract, a lot of those individuals, in the restaurant industry and hospitality industry, also find themselves in some financial hardships from time to time, and especially now during the COVID era. So it's going to be important for me to, protect everybody, and making sure that they're still able to live in the community they want to live in and be able to keep a roof over their head.
Okay. If elected, would you support the expeditious completion of the Thoroughbred Trail, which leads from downtown up to Kentucky State University? And is there anything more that the city leadership can do to foster a more partnering relationship with Kentucky State?
Yeah, that's a project that I'm really excited about. I've been wanting to see, physically a connection to the university and to our downtown for, really forever, as long as, city government and working and living in this community, it's always been something that I think has been, we've been neglecting. We know, the project's moving forward. Yes, I'd like to see it move forward as fast as it possibly can. And so the second part, as far as what can we as city government and city officials do to continue to reach out to the university, I think this is another example of where listening really matters. I have maybe some ideas on that, but they may be tired ideas and they may need some updating. So I think I would start with, making sure to go up and talk to, the student leaders at the university and to the faculty and staff as well, and just say, what is it, in this era, with the way that, COVID is impacting students and impacting the jobs and everybody up at the university, what is it that we need to be doing? How can we get more involved? From some fun social projects, we were brainstorming the other day, some friends and I, about, having, community tailgates, for the sporting events up there, and getting people up there for, tailgating the sporting events. But again, what what this year is going to look like as far as the ability to participate in those events is going to be a little different. So, yeah, I would start by asking them and listening.
Okay. Well, in 2021, Frankfort will have a new mayor, a new city manager, at least 2 new city commissioners, a new Chamber of Commerce director, and a new director of DFI. Those are big changes considering the gravity of local projects that are underway, coming out of what's been an exceptionally challenging year as it is. So what do you see as the challenges and opportunities that these changes will provide?
All right, so yeah, I mean, look, it's new changes. You're right, a new era, kind of coming in here. So with new sets of eyes on projects, I think you'll see some new ideas and new creative ideas on ways to move forward. I do think it's going to be incredibly important that those that are, either choosing to step aside or not coming back. And those that have worked on the projects, that we continue to, reach out for guidance and assistance whenever we need to on something. There's no fault in sometimes saying, that extending, a hand backwards every now and again to ask, how they achieved or got to those certain decisions about how these products are moving forward. But, it's new visions, moving in. So I think we continue to work on what so many people have been working on these projects, and kind of the way I look at it as all the hard work and years of these individuals has finally paid off, because they've kind of set the stage for what we know our community, can achieve. So now, after their hard work, it's time to pass the torch and let the new era, move in and move forward with exciting visions.
Okay. Well, if you get elected, what are the goals that you would champion during your term?
Asking me that question when we first started the campaign and where we're at now are kind of different. Originally, the core value is still the same, and that is the economic and social well-being of all of, all of the people that live here in our community and in our neighborhood. But for me, it's going to be the new projects, the new growth of parks master plan, continue to keep those moving forward so we can see, during a COVID era, keeping the outdoor spaces available for community members to continue to engage for their physical and mental health, really focusing, as I was talking about, on that poverty level that we're seeing. How do we continue to work towards making sure that every child has an opportunity to succeed in our community? And with growth projects, the river's a real passionate one for me. I think development on the river, however I can help impact that, is going to be very important for me. In the first 2 years, just trying to get the ball rolling on that. I think it's an amazing resource, both for those that live here permanently and those that travel here. It's underutilized. It's time for us to step up and make as many things get flowing down there, no pun intended, as possible.
Excellent. Well, we're coming to a close, so I am now going to turn it over to you and let you address our viewers directly. You can tell them why you're the best candidate for City Commission. Feel free to ask them for their vote and tell them where they can find out more information about you.
Well, Cathy, thank you again for hosting this, and I really appreciate it. Listen, to the voters out there, I'm making a personal commitment to you today to make my priority making our government as efficient, effective, and as accountable as possible. I know that right now we're at a time where things can be uncertain. We have so many people out there living paycheck to paycheck, and we have got to make sure right now that we put the focus back on how do we get through this, together as a team. Take the politics outside of where you stand on policies and guidelines, and let's protect our health. Let's protect our community. Let's move forward and get past this so we can start becoming the community we were meant to be. The one that we all know is here. We see it, we participate in it, we shop here, we live here, we work here, we play here, we dream here, we raise our kids. It's a beautiful community, and I'm still more excited for it now than I ever have been. So I ask for your vote humbly. You can find out about things that we're doing with the campaign at our Facebook page, Kelly May for Commissioner, where you can request, ask questions, anything. I'm happy to get back to you on that. And again, I'm really excited for your participation and doing your diligence to research candidates. And I certainly hope that I earned your vote. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kelly. We sure do appreciate your time today. I know I do, and I'm sure that our viewers do, because we know how important it is to get informed. So to our viewers, again, thank you for watching. It is important to get informed, and that's why these interviews are so valuable, because this is how you get answers directly from our candidates. So thank you so much. I want to remind you to go vote anytime between October 13th and November 3rd. That's all for now. We'll see you next time on Meet the Candidates.